What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Very Cold Lasagna, the podcast that has a safe and open listening platform for casual, cold, and even the dumbest takes on the world of WWE, AEW, the NFL, and the wide world of pro wrestling and sports in general. I'm your host, DylanLasagna. Welcome to today's episode number 36. And oh man, do we have another good one for you all, because WWE decided to grab out their broomsticks, put a bunch of ants in the trash once again, and say, see ya, you're out of here, because WWE released a bunch of people once again in their latest round of spring cleaning in summer. And we're going to be talking about it in this episode. And my gosh, they've been doing a lot of spring cleaning, especially, this time around. It's interesting how much spring cleaning they did. And sure, they did a lot back then too. But this time, it feels different. I wonder what they're gonna do. I really wonder what they're trying to do. Are they trying to sell WWE? Is Vince and Nick Khan trying to sell WWE, or like are they trying to overhaul it? I wonder what they're gonna do here. I really wonder what they're gonna do. I mean, sure, I'm already talking about it right now, but I'm just curious what this is going to lead to. And I'm also curious, if this is going to change anything, especially, with NXT, because, as you can tell by, the title, whether it's visually or audibly, NXT people got released in the latest round of releases. So we're going to be talking about that in this episode. And honestly, not too much in wrestling happened. Honestly, Bobby Lashley and Goldberg was confirmed. I will say, though, that I don't understand why they're trying to interject Finn Balor into Roman Reigns versus John Cena when WWE literally are making the same mistake that they did with just literally 4 months ago with Daniel Bryan versus Edge versus Roman Reigns. Please don't do it again with Reigns and Cena. Leave it one-on-one. That's a money match. Don't. So it's fine as Roman versus Cena. That's the franchise money match for Vegas for SummerSlam. So anyway, Goldberg versus Lashley is confirmed. I don't like what they're doing with Balor being interjected into this story. I mean, if it's going to be Reigns versus Balor on a SmackDown episode, or they're trying to tease it for the pay-per-view after SummerSlam, then sure, but can't you wait till after SummerSlam to build that up? I don't know. Other than that, Raw and SmackDown were crappy as usual. I didn't care to see AEW at all. I will say, though, that I'm not sure what they're doing with Hangman Adam Page. I don't know, if they're really going to stop, his push, or not have him face Kenny Omega for the world title at All Out, which would be a mistake. It really would be a mistake. So apparently Christian Cage is the new number one contender. I like Christian, but I don't think if he's going to face Kenny at All Out, I don't think that should happen. It should happen on an episode of Dynamite. If Christian happens to be the world champion, then I wouldn't mind it. So that was the week in wrestling. Not a lot happened. Not a lot happened there. Pretty much a bunch of bullshit. So, obviously, the main event, the main topic here is the releases. But before we get into that, we gotta, glorify ourselves here on the podcast. And as always, like we gotta do, you gotta check out wherever I am. So, as always, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Turn on that notification bell so you'll be notified of each and every vodcast that goes up. Listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor FM. And follow me on social media on Twitter and Instagram at Very Cold Lasagna. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about these big releases that happened throughout the past week by WWE. And there were a good amount of them this time around. But it all started with one particular person, the one that stands out the most from the crowd. And that person is Bray Wyatt. Yeah, the Bray Wyatt. The leader of the Wyatt family. The Eater of Worlds. The Face of Fear. The Mr. Rogers in a sweater. Firefly Funhouse Bray Wyatt. The Fiend. However you want to define Bray Wyatt. Yeah, that Bray Wyatt was released on July 31st. That pretty much started these round of releases for WWE within the last week or so. And man, honestly, with this release that I'm about to talk about, with all the others I'm about to get into, I was a little surprised with this one. And sure, it took place a little over a week ago now, but at the time when, the release happened, I never had a chance to, fully get in my thoughts, even when I got back from a family thing, and that was out of state. And right now, as I fully have my thoughts now, I'm just wondering, why did WWE release him when he was one of the top merchandise guys, and fans of all kinds liked him? Whether it was a casual, core, or hardcore fan, people liked him. People were fans of Bray Wyatt, especially with the Fiend gimmick. People could have dressed up like the Fiend. Some people actually did dress up like the Fiend. They cosplayed as the Fiend. So, I'm really curious as to why they did this. They released Bray Wyatt when he had a lot of appeal to fans of all kinds, and he had a little bit of mainstream buzz too. You would see him on the FS1 show, even though it was a failed WWE FS1 show, but still. And then he was on a few bumpers and a few ads for WWE on Fox and NFL on Fox, whatever. But still, he had a little bit of mainstream buzz going for Bray Wyatt's Fiend gimmick. I don't know why WWE decided to release him. Beats me. In each and every week with Bray Wyatt, especially with the Fiend. I know it's different with every person, but it stood out. Bray Wyatt's gimmick, it stood out. It presented something new to the table, something different to the table. It was just I work hard, I work different. I work my ass off, these promos are today. It's he tried to evolve his gimmick. He introduced a new portion of the Firefly Funhouse every day, as if you were watching Blue's Clues or a demented Wiggles, every week, by introducing Mercy the Buzzard or the evil Mr. McMahon puppet. All these things leading up to, obviously, the Fiend. And then once we got to the Fiend beating Finn Balor, man, it felt like the issues that plagued Bray Wyatt back then, when he was the Eater of Worlds, continued to plague him again as the Fiend. And that's why I see that as the biggest issue with Bray Wyatt in WWE. Sure, he had a modestly successful run in the company for a near decade. He was a 2-time Universal Champion, and he managed to stay around when he could have left, by going through 2 persona changes, especially the second one when he evolved it into this demented children's host character whose alter ego is this scary alter ego. But the thing was, WWE really messed up creatively with it. This is the one instance where, like, I'd say WWE dropped the ball with Bray Wyatt. Now, again, I know some people can say Bray Wyatt is the one because he didn't have a lot of memorable matches, and sure, he didn't. I agree with that sentiment. He didn't have a lot of great matches, and honestly, it's not always about the matches. It's about the promos too. It's about the promos, the charisma, the character, and Bray Wyatt had that. He had that delivery, and he had a gimmick. He had an interesting gimmick, and WWE blundered it, and he blundered. They blundered it long term with the booking with Seth Rollins back in 2019, like that horrible Hell in a Cell match with the red lighting and Bray Wyatt no selling a bunch of moves, and then Seth Rollins was disqualified for hitting Bray Wyatt with the sledgehammer on a bunch of objects, which was stupid. And then Bray Wyatt losing the Universal title when he never should have had it in the first place to Goldberg at stupid shit down in 2020. And him losing back at WrestleMania this year to Randy Orton because Alexa Bliss, Bray Wyatt's new friend, becoming the higher power. All the black jizz all over her face. I'm sorry. That's what it reminds me of. Because she became the higher power in taking all the Fiend's power, both literally and metaphorically. So, I don't know. Each and every time that fans have hope for Bray Wyatt, WWE takes it away. They take it away from them by having Bray Wyatt lose big match after big match and making him felt less important as the weeks and months went on. And I don't know what happened after WrestleMania. Why he left. I know some dirt sheeters were saying that he left for mental health reasons, and if that is true, I totally understand. Everyone needs to take care of their mental health. But at the end of the day, Bray Wyatt was the biggest release of them all. Shocking, to say the least, because this dude wasn't the greatest in-ring technical wrestler. He didn't have any great matches, to be honest with you, other than the cinematic match with John Cena, that acid trip at WrestleMania 36. But he still was a presentable guy. He was still somewhat marketable because he had the it factor that honestly is needed in pro wrestling, with the charisma, promo, character. Not a lot of people have that in not just WWE but all of wrestling. So Bray Wyatt, when his gimmick got stale, the Eater World's gimmick got stale, he adapted. He changed it up while he was away from, I don't know if it was an injury, but he changed it up when he came back. He became this somewhat on the outside happy character, but it was actually demented on the inside. But unfortunately, WWE brought him down creatively, and I don't know what led to his release. I don't know if it was budget cuts, and I don't want to speculate, like the dirt sheeters, or mental health. And if it is mental health, then I hope he does well with it. I hope he takes care of it. We all need positive vibes with our mental health. But either way, I hope Bray Wyatt gets a chance to shine wherever he goes next. It'd be nice to see him back in WWE, or I don't know, if he goes AEW, more power to him. Wherever he goes, it'd be interesting to see what he does next. So then we had Ric Flair. Ric Flair. I didn't know he had a Legends contract. I did not know this guy was still employed by WWE. So Ric Flair was released on August 3rd. He was released from his Legends contract, and honestly, Yeah, I don't really have much else to say. I mean, sure, like he was in some storylines within the last year. The latest one being in that weird one with Lacey Evans in Charlotte, but that got scrapped because Lacey Evans got legit pregnant, and yeah, they had to scrap it because that would have made the whole storyline look bad. So other than that, he hasn't done much. I mean, well, besides the fact that, well, he's trying to get his uncharismatic daughter Charlotte to get as many title reigns, to be the Matt Stafford of WWE. But he hasn't really done much. I mean, he's already done what he could. Like, he's a 16-time world champion, WWE Hall of Famer. What more could you want? What more do you need him to do? Other than pop the ratings for one night. So, Ric Flair. Ric Flair is released from WWE. Like, he can have more free will to do what he wants, I guess. Whether it's appear for WWE for one time, AEW appear for one time, heck, even Impact, or do more appearances for ESPN or like other commercials or whatnot. But yeah, so then we had the big releases that happened this past Friday from NXT. So not just main roster, not just legends, NXT. So on August 6th, 12 NXT wrestlers were released. And I gotta say, Nick, this is the part where I say, I know it sucks that people lost their jobs, but if you're not doing your job, you deserve to get cut. It's like an NFL team. If you don't do well at your job, you're gonna get cut. Just look at Bears kicker Cody Parkey. He doinked the kick in a wild card game, and lo and behold, he eventually got cut. So anyway, that's kind of what we're dealing with here. A bunch of wrestlers that didn't do their job well. They didn't, work on what truly sells in pro wrestling. Unlike Bray Wyatt, who managed to work on what sells well in pro wrestling. And look what happened. They got cut. So let's take a look at these list of wrestlers that got cut. We had Bronson Reed, Mercedes Martinez, Bobby Fish, and for those of you that are wondering who the heck these people are, don't worry. I don't know who any of these people are either. Then we also had Leon Ruff, Tyler Rust, Jake Atlas, Asher Hale, Giant Sangier, Sakira Smith, Kona Reeves, Ari Sterling, Desmond Troy, and referee Sterling Smith. And this is courtesy of Wrestling Inc. And thankfully, I need this because I don't know who the frick any of these people are. Bronson Reed signed back with WWE in January 2019. Former NXT North American champion. Only held it for 30 days though. And his last appearance was in a loss to Adam Cole last month on July 21st. And Tyler Rust signed with WWE in December 2020, and he was part of that Diamond Mine stable with Roderick Strong, Malcolm Bivens, and Hachi Man. Again, more no names that casuals and non-fans don't know. So he last wrestled on a July 20th NXT show that he and Roderick Strong lost to Bobby Fish and Cruiserweight champion Kushida. Speaking of Bobby Fish, he wrestled on that show, and he signed with WWE in 2017. He was part of that Undisputed Era stable with Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, Roderick Strong. And then Leon Ruff signed with WWE in October 2020, and he had been away since May 2011 to when he lost to Pete Dunne. And Mercedes Martinez is a 40-year-old talent that signed with WWE in January 2020 after working the Mae Young Classic in 2017 and 2018. And she last wrestled on the June 29th NXT show, where she and Jake Atlas lost to Xia Li and Boa. Speaking of Atlas, he signed with WWE in October 2019, and he didn't do much. Let's see. This Sterling guy, Ari Sterling. He made his latest appearance on the Friday's 205 Live show. And who watches 205 Live? Asher Hale also appeared on the 205 Live show that aired this past Friday on Peacock. And then Zakariya Smith was a Performance Center recruit. Giant Sangier appeared on Superstar Spectacle, signed in January 2020. Kona Reeves actually is the longest tenured of the bunch of these NXT signings, but he hasn't appeared on television at any programming since February 19th, 2020, taking a loss to Keith Lee. And Smith, the referee, Stephen Smith, was working as a full-time NXT referee. So that is your list of WWE releases that happened, especially the NXT releases. And I know some people, mostly the hardcore wrestling fan base in the IWC, were very upset that their beloved wrestlers, especially like Bronson Reed, Bobby Fish, and Mercedes Martinez, and even Jake Atlas, these guys that a lot of people don't know, all of a sudden were released out of the blue during SmackDown this past Friday night. And I'm going to tell you right now that they'll be fine. They'll find work elsewhere. After their 30 days are up, they'll find work in AEW and Impact, Ring of Honor, to do their uncharismatic, flippy, fucky, flips and kicks, no selling bullshit that WWE is clearly not going to be into anymore. I think this is a transition of WWE is getting dead ass tired of the flips, kicks, and all that bullshit. I think that's what they're trying to signal. We want that to get the fuck out. Because they did all of us a favor by not having these jobbers be on our TV screen. I'm not trying to say that I'm happy they lost their jobs, but again, this is me trying to say, if they're not doing their jobs well, if they're not working on the most important aspects, like storytelling, clear-cut storytelling, characters, promos, vignettes, all those important things that will grasp a non-fan in saying, hey, maybe I want to see this wrestler or this storyline, then you're going to get cut. You are going to get cut. These guys that were released, these guys and gals that were released, they were all boring. They were all boring, nameless, uncharismatic jobbers. Like, who knew these people outside the hardcore wrestling bubble? Like, again, all they did was flips, kicks, dives, and with the Bronson Reed, he probably did a few power moves, but that's it. This was all no nonsense, no selling bullshit. So WWE continued to do what they've been doing since the last year, and that's cut all the dead weight that they've been hoarding for the last near decade. And they honestly should have been doing this for since 2017. They've been hoarding talent, and I'm glad they're doing it now, but they should have been doing this a long while ago. So back to the NXT thing. They're all jobbers that most actual fans didn't and probably will never know. So I'm just wondering, how are you going to convince someone to know who the heck Bobby Fish is when they never seen an NXT show or a Raw or SmackDown in their life? So if I went up to someone and tried to show them a clip of Bobby Fish or a picture of Bronson Reed on my phone, they'd probably ask me, is that Jordan Reed from the 49ers or from the NFL? Or is that a kind of fish that you need at the supermarket? Do you want me to give you money to buy you this kind of brand of reed? The clarinet reed or whatnot? That's what I'm getting at. This problem of every company in pro wrestling not telling you who these wrestlers are, specifically the ones that have national TV contracts in WWE and AEW. They expect you to know who they are already, or either that, or they make you use the power of Google, Wikipedia, or YouTube when it's their job to tell you who they are, sell you on who they are through vignettes, promos, interviews, the basic things that got people over, like Rey Mysterio, the Hurricane, like all Eddie Guerrero, all the guys that seemed like jobbers but actually got over during the Ruthless Aggression era. Like, what's the problem with doing one promo like every so often? Like, it's like saying, oh, America's Got Talent or American Idol, not editing like a bio, a brief showcase on these performers, like where they come from or what's their story prior to their auditions. Like, it makes no sense. And that's why each wrestler on this NXT list, they feel like an afterthought. They'll still feel that way because the casual viewer or normal person, they don't feel any somewhat interested in a Bronson Reed or a Mercedes Martinez because they don't know who they are. They don't know what their gimmick is. They don't know what their character is. Like, they don't know anything about them. Like, they're interested in a Bray Wyatt because they know he's a children's show host character in disguise, but when he transformed into this demented monster, they know what he's capable of. But with a Bronson Reed, all they know is like, oh, he can do moves. That's it. So maybe it's time for these wrestlers to stop being so entitled to the fact that they can save pro wrestling with just long, athletic, yet boring gymnastic matches. I mean, if I wanted to watch that, I can just watch the NFL. Or, in the case of the Olympics, which are ending, by the way, I could have just watched wrestling on the Olympics. I could have just done that. So, guys, Vince McMahon and Nick Khan did all of us a favor by releasing these wrestlers. I know they'll find work elsewhere so they can do their flips and kicks and all their other crap in elsewhere, but they're doing us a favor by keeping the people that have the tangibles in pro wrestling, the most important tangibles, the personality, the characters, the clear-cut storylines, the charisma. That's what sells in pro wrestling. None of those guys, with the exception of Bray Wyatt and, I don't know, Ric Flair is Ric Flair. The NXT guys in particular did not draw a dime in pro wrestling. They didn't draw any merchandise for the normal person, non-fan, the casual fan, none of them. And if you say, "Oh, fuck the casuals, they don't give a shit. We want them away from our precious pro wrestling," then pro wrestling. That's why pro wrestling is deader than ever, because of gatekeeping and no franchise stars. It's pretty much like, I don't know, the New York Jets. Like, that's how I put it. They're either the New York Jets or the Oklahoma City Thunder. That's my analogy of the freaking state of pro wrestling. More specifically, WWE and AEW. So, more power to you if you want to chastise Vince McMahon and Nick Khan for their evil doing. Oh, shit. But in my opinion, like, they continue to get rid of the garbage. They got rid of the garbage yet again with each and every round of releases that they do. And sure, they still do the other stupid shit like the bad botches of Peacock, and releasing like other wrestlers that don't need to be released, like Bray Wyatt, Braun Strowman, and others that actually can sell people into watching WWE for the first time, and are like money makers for the company. At least there are other tangibles. There are other things that they do get right. So that is your releases for this round for WWE, and for the most part, mostly they got it right. I just didn't like that they released Bray Wyatt because he had a lot to offer. He had a lot to offer in terms of charisma, story, character. Like, he was one of the very few character-driven wrestlers in WWE. Like, he didn't even have a 5-star match. He didn't have a great match. He just needed to tell a story, both outside and inside the ring. He checked all those boxes, and they let him go. I don't know the full story, nor do anyone else. Only Bray Wyatt knows, and when he does, that's when we'll find out all the details. As for all the NXT talents, maybe figure out why he got released, work on what actually sells in pro wrestling, and maybe you can try to save it with all the flips and kicks, but it's never gonna work. It is never gonna work. So I do hope that they find work elsewhere, where it's an AEW, NWA, Impact, whatever. But just know that whatever got you released, maybe there's something to work on. Maybe there's something that you need to work on. But anyway, that's my thoughts on the releases from this round of WWE. What did you guys think about WWE releasing these people, whether it's Wyatt, Ric Flair, or the NXT jobbers? Let me know in the comments or in messages, or however you may feel. Like, however you can reach out to me, whether it's on YouTube, social media, however. Let me know how you feel about these round of releases. But anyway, that's it for this episode of Very Cold Lasagna. I'm your host, DylanLasagna. Thank you for tuning into this fine episode. It's time to close the fridge and put that very cold lasagna away. And as always, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn on the notification bell, make sure to listen to podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Anchor FM, and Spotify. And follow me on social media, on Twitter and Instagram at Very Cold Lasagna. And as always, keep that lasagna very cold in the fridge with your takes on the world of pro wrestling and sports very cold and very chill. But again, I hope these people find work wherever they can, and if they find their way back to WWE, well, that's good for them too. But anyway, that's it for this episode. I am DylanLasagna signing out, and until next time, peace out.